First contact anomaly. The Meridian Collective's extraction vessel had never encountered an anomaly in 4,617 operations. The massive ship, an obsidian cathedral of angular geometry and pulsing blue energy fields, hung in silent orbit above Earth. Its presence was masked by advanced camouflage technology that bent light and sensor readings around its hull. Inside, Commander Jelks watched the view screen with 4 of his 6 eyes, while the others monitored the extraction readouts. Target located, announced Technician Vorla, her appendages weaving through the holographic control matrix. Human female. Designation: Dr. Tara Chen. Occupation: theoretical mathematician specializing in multidimensional topology. Current location: isolated research facility, Northern Hemisphere. Scan for atypical attributes, Jelks ordered, his metallic voice echoing in the command chamber. Nothing irregular detected, replied Vorla after several moments. Standard human biosignature. No exceptional physical characteristics. No evident technological augmentations. Threat assessment: minimal. Jelks's mouthparts clicked together in satisfaction. Proceed with extraction. The Meridians had perfected the art of specimen collection across 17 galactic sectors. Their technological superiority was unquestioned, their methodical approach to cataloging sentient species unmatched. Humans were relatively new to their database, a nascent species that had barely escaped their own atmosphere, still confined to a single planetary system. Dr. Tara Chen wasn't supposed to be anything special, just another human whose brain patterns showed interesting activity patterns worth studying. Nothing more. The quantum extraction beam activated silently, its algorithms calculating the precise atomic reassembly of the human subject. In her small cabin at the remote research station, Dr. Chen was working late, scribbling elaborate equations on transparent boards that surrounded her desk in a half circle. The extraction would be instant, painless, and completely undetectable to human monitoring systems. At precisely 2:37 local Earth time, the beam engaged. That's when everything changed. The extraction chamber aboard the Meridian vessel was designed to handle any biological entity in the known galaxy. It had transported beings made of plasma, crystalline structures, gaseous consciousness clouds, and countless carbon-based life forms. The chamber was lined with quantum stabilizers that ensured molecular integrity during reassembly. As Tara Chen's form began to materialize, alarm sirens erupted across the ship. Quantum flux distortion, shouted Vorla. Extraction parameters exceeded by factor of 17. No, 43. Impossible. It's still climbing. Commander Jelks stared in disbelief as the readouts spiraled into chaos. The extraction chamber, normally bathed in cool blue light, now pulsed with impossible colors that seemed to bend and twist the very structure of space around them. Containment protocols, he ordered, but his voice lacked conviction. In all his cycles of service, he had never witnessed anything like this. Inside the chamber, Dr. Tara Chen's form finally solidified. She was unremarkable by human standards. Average height, slim build, shoulder-length black hair. But the space around her was anything but normal. The air itself seemed to bend and fold, creating geometric patterns that shifted and transformed with each breath she took. Equations appeared to float around her, not projected but somehow woven into the fabric of reality itself. Tara opened her eyes and looked around, her expression more curious than frightened. "Interesting," she said softly, her voice somehow manifesting as visible sound waves that expanded in perfect mathematical sequences. The nearest monitoring console melted and reformed into a complex fractal pattern. "What is happening?" demanded Jelks, all 6 eyes now fixed on the chamber. "Explain." Chief Scientist Magor approached, his usually steady appendages trembling slightly. "Commander, I believe the human is mathematically altering local reality." "That's impossible," Jelks replied. "No species possesses such capability." "Nevertheless," Magor said, gesturing at the monitors, She appears to be rewriting the fundamental equations of our containment field simply by perceiving them. Inside the chamber, Tara walked toward the transparent wall, examining it with professional interest. Her fingers traced invisible patterns in the air, not random movements, but precise mathematical formulations. Where her fingertips passed, the molecular structure of the barrier rippled and transformed. "Fascinating construction," she said, her voice again manifesting as visible mathematical formulas. "But these boundary equations are incomplete." The supposedly impenetrable chamber wall developed a perfectly circular opening. Tara stepped through it as casually as one might walk through a doorway. Alarms blared throughout the ship. Security protocols engaged automatically, surrounding the human with energy fields designed to immobilize even the most powerful known beings. Tara paused, studying the shimmering barriers with academic interest. "Non-Euclidean restraint fields," she observed. "Clever application of quantum uncertainty principles." She tilted her head, as if listening to music only she could hear. "But you've overlooked something fundamental. The restraint fields didn't so much fail as transform, their energy reconfiguring into complex, beautiful patterns that orbited Terra like electron shells around an atom's nucleus." Commander Jelks activated the ship-wide emergency protocol. "All personnel, we have a containment breach. Unknown entity possessing reality manipulation capabilities. Evacuation procedures for non-essential crew. Security teams to Section 4. Tara Chen looked up at the announcement, apparently understanding the alien language perfectly. "There's no need for evacuation," she said, her words manifesting as glowing equations in the air. "I mean no harm. I'm simply trying to understand where I am." Heavily armed security teams surrounded her, weapons trained on the human. Their armor was designed to withstand plasma storms and gravitational anomalies, the most advanced personal protection in 17 galactic sectors. "Stand down and submit to containment," ordered the security chief, a towering meridian with reinforced exoskeletal plating. Tara sighed. "I'd rather not be contained again. I've just gotten out." Her gaze fell on the weapons pointed at her. "Those are interesting. Quantum destabilizers. The harmonics are quite elegant." As she spoke, the weapons began to vibrate, their molecular structures resonating in harmony with her voice. One by one, they transformed into intricate mathematical models, beautiful but entirely harmless. The security team backed away, their confidence shattered. Tara walked forward, seemingly oblivious to the chaos she was causing. Wherever she passed, the ship's structure responded to her presence. Walls undulated with fractal patterns, equipment rearranged itself into more efficient configurations, and energy fields bent toward her like flowers following the sun. Commander Jelks watched in horror as his perfect extraction operation descended into unprecedented chaos. "What is she?" he demanded of Chief Scientist Magor. Magor's appendages trembled as he analyzed the incoming data. "Commander, I believe we have made a grave miscalculation. This human doesn't simply understand mathematics. She perceives reality as mathematical equations and can rewrite them." "That's impossible," Jelks insisted. "No biological entity can directly manipulate fundamental reality." "Evidently," Magor replied, gesturing at the monitors displaying Tara's casual stroll through the ship. "This one can." Tara Chen had spent her entire academic career exploring theoretical mathematics that her colleagues considered beautiful but impractical. Her theories on multidimensional topology and quantum harmonic resonance were dismissed as elegant thought experiments with no practical application. Now, surrounded by alien technology that operated on principles she had only theorized, everything was clicking into place. She wasn't scared. She was exhilarated. As she walked through the alien vessel, equations revealed themselves to her, the mathematical underpinnings of technology centuries beyond human development. But more than seeing them, she could feel them, could sense how they interconnected and where they could be improved. With each passing moment, her understanding deepened, and with understanding came the ability to influence. "Fascinating," she murmured, watching as a nearby control panel reconfigured itself in response to her thoughts. The ship's systems operate on principles similar to my unified harmonic theory. The Meridians observed with growing concern as their prisoner, who wasn't behaving like a prisoner at all, proceeded to explore their vessel with the curiosity of a child in a museum. More alarming was how the ship itself seemed to respond to her presence, systems reconfiguring and optimizing without any direct input. We need to understand what we're dealing with, Commander Jelks decided. Activate the locust chamber. Chief Scientist Mager's appendages stiffened. Commander, the locust chamber hasn't been used in over 700 cycles. The risks are necessary. Jelks cut him off. This human represents an unprecedented threat to the collective. We must understand her capabilities before she compromises our entire operation. The locust chamber was the Meridian's most sophisticated analysis technology. A spherical room where reality itself could be manipulated and tested. It was normally reserved for studying cosmic anomalies and testing theoretical weapons, never for analyzing a living subject. As Terra explored the ship, she became aware of a presence guiding her movements. The pathways seemed to reconfigure themselves, subtly directing her toward a specific destination. She sensed no malice in this guidance, only purpose, and allowed herself to follow it. The path led to a massive circular doorway that irised open at her approach. Beyond it lay a perfect sphere, its interior surface composed of what appeared to be liquid metal that somehow remained fixed in place. The chamber was empty except for a small platform at its center. "Hello," Tara called out, her voice creating ripples across the metallic surface. "I know you're watching me. Let's talk." Commander Jelks's voice emanated from all around her. "Step onto the platform, human. We wish to understand you." Tara considered the request, then shrugged and stepped forward. "Fair enough. I'd like to understand you too." The moment she stood on the platform, the chamber came alive. The metallic walls flowed and shifted, creating complex patterns that seemed to be attempting to analyze and categorize her. Energy fields of various frequencies and intensities washed over her, probing, scanning, testing. To the Meridian's astonishment, Tara didn't merely endure this analysis, she participated in it. As the chamber attempted to classify her capabilities, she responded by demonstrating new ones, manipulating the very tests being used to measure her. "Remarkable," Mager whispered, watching the readouts. "She's not just responding to the tests. She's improving them." On the observation deck, Commander Jelks and his senior officers watched in growing alarm as the locust chamber, their most advanced technology, was effectively being reprogrammed by the human inside it. The chamber wasn't just analyzing her, it was learning from her, adapting to her thought patterns, evolving in ways its creators had never intended. "Shut it down," Jelks ordered. "Terminate the analysis immediately." But it was too late. The connection between Terra and the chamber had grown too complex to simply sever. When they attempted to power down the systems, the energy simply rerouted itself, finding new pathways to maintain the link. Inside the chamber, Terra stood with eyes closed, communing with the alien technology in a language of pure mathematics. The equations that governed the ship's operation revealed themselves to her, and with each passing moment, her understanding deepened. "You've been collecting species," she said finally, opening her eyes to look directly at the observation window. "Thousands of species from across the galaxy, categorized and stored like specimens in a museum. Why?" Commander Jelks hesitated, then activated the communication system. "Knowledge is power, human. The Meridian Collective has spent millennia gathering the genetic and cultural diversity of the galaxy. We preserve what would otherwise be lost." "Preserve?" Terra raised an eyebrow. "Or control?" Before Jelks could respond, alarm sirens blared throughout the ship. The locust chamber's walls began to shift and flow more rapidly, forming intricate patterns that pulsed with inner light. "What's happening?" demanded Jelks. "She's accessing the central database," Magor replied, his voice tight with tension. "Somehow, She's using the locust chamber as a conduit to our main systems. Through the mathematical equations that surrounded her, Terra could see it all, the true extent of the Meridian Collective's preservation efforts. They weren't simply collecting species, they were systematically cataloging and exploiting them, extracting useful genetic traits and technological innovations, while discarding the rest. And now they had found her. A human whose perception of reality allowed her to manipulate it at its most fundamental level. She could only imagine what they planned to do with such a capability if they could harness it. "I think," Terra said calmly, "this has gone far enough." With that thought, the locust chamber transformed. The liquid metal walls solidified into crystal clarity, becoming transparent windows that revealed the truth of the Meridian operation. Beyond the chamber walls, Terra could now see vast containment facilities housing representatives of countless species, many in states of suspended animation, others undergoing various forms of analysis and experimentation. "You're not preservers," she said, her voice heavy with disappointment. "You're collectors. You take without consent, study without compassion, and discard what you no longer need." Commander Jelks's voice hardened. "You cannot judge what you do not understand, human. The galaxy is vast and dangerous. What we do ensures the survival of countless genetic legacies that would otherwise be lost to natural selection or warfare. Without freedom or dignity," Terra replied. "That's not preservation, it's imprisonment." As she spoke, something extraordinary began to happen throughout the ship. The containment fields holding other specimens began to fluctuate and transform, not failing but evolving into something new. Protective barriers that maintained life support while gradually bringing the specimens out of stasis. "Stop this immediately," Jelks commanded. "You don't understand the consequences of what you're doing." But Terra Chen understood perfectly well. Through her connection to the ship's systems, she could feel the presence of the other captives. Thousands of minds slowly awakening from forced slumber, their consciousness reaching out in confusion and fear. And she made a decision. "I understand exactly what I'm doing," she replied, her voice calm but resolute. "I'm introducing a new equation to your system." The ship shuddered as reality itself seemed to ripple outward from the locust chamber. The mathematical principles that Terra had spent her life developing were now manifesting on a scale she had never imagined possible. The Meridian vessel, designed to capture and contain, was being transformed into something entirely different. Commander Jelks watched in horror as his perfect extraction operation, his flawless record of specimen acquisition, and the very mission of the Meridian Collective began to unravel before his eyes. And Dr. Terra Chen, an unremarkable human mathematician who had been deemed a simple research subject, stood at the center of it all, rewriting the fundamental equations of reality itself. Paradigm shift. Commander Jelks had never experienced failure. In 300 cycles of service to the Meridian Collective, his record had been flawless, his missions executed with mathematical precision. Now, he watched as chaos spread through his vessel like a virus, all because of one unremarkable human mathematician. "Engage emergency protocols," he commanded, his voice cutting through the cacophony of alarms. "All security forces to containment level Alpha. Prepare the quantum nullification field." But the ship no longer responded as expected. Control panels flickered with strange equations that rewrote themselves continuously. Energy pathways diverted from their programmed routes, forming new connections throughout the vessel. In the observation chamber, Chief Scientist Magor stared at the readouts with a mixture of horror and fascination. "Commander," he said, his voice barely audible, "I don't believe we can stop this. The human isn't simply manipulating our technology. She's fundamentally rewriting the mathematical principles upon which it operates." Inside the locust chamber, Terra Chen stood at the center of a mathematical revolution. Equations flowed around her like water, manifesting as visible light patterns that expanded outward through the ship's systems. With each passing moment, her understanding of the Meridian technology deepened, and with understanding came control. Through her newly established connection to the ship's database, Terra had accessed the complete history of the Meridian Collective. 17,000 years of systematic collection and exploitation of sentient species across multiple galactic sectors. What had begun as scientific curiosity had evolved into something far more sinister, a vast operation designed to extract useful genetic and technological innovations while discarding the rest. And now the Meridians had found something truly valuable. A human with the ability to perceive and manipulate the mathematical foundations of reality itself. "I won't be your specimen," Terra said, her words manifesting as glowing equations that spread through the ship's communication systems. "And neither will they." Throughout the vast containment sectors of the vessel, stasis fields began to transform. They didn't fail. That would have meant death for many of the specimens, but reconfigured into something new. Protective environments that maintain necessary life support while gradually awakening the consciousness of those within. Commander Jelks felt control slipping away with each passing moment. Deploy the nullification field now. The quantum nullification field was the Meridian's ultimate failsafe, a technology designed to suppress all quantum fluctuations within a defined space, effectively freezing reality in a predetermined state. It had never been used on an inhabited vessel before, but Jelks saw no alternative. The massive generators beneath the ship's core engaged, drawing enormous power as they prepared to establish the field. Warning signals flashed throughout the vessel as non-essential systems were shut down to provide the necessary energy. Terra felt the buildup immediately, a pressure against her mathematical perception, like a gathering storm. Through her connection to the ship's systems, she understood what the Meridians were attempting. "Interesting approach," she murmured, "but fundamentally flawed." As the nullification field began to form, Terra examined its mathematical structure, a brilliant construction designed to impose absolute order on quantum reality. But like all equations, it had variables that could be altered, constants that could be redefined. The nullification field engaged with a silent flash that rippled through the ship. For a brief moment, everything froze. Energy patterns halted mid-flow, equations suspended in mid-transformation. Commander Jelks allowed himself a moment of hope. "Status report." "Nullification field at full power," reported the engineering chief. Quantum fluctuations neutralized throughout the vessel. But the victory was short-lived. Within the frozen mathematical landscape of the nullification field, a single point of change appeared. A minute alteration in one variable of the field's governing equation. Then another, and another. "Impossible," whispered Mager, watching the readouts. "She's solving the nullification equation from within the field itself." The nullification field didn't collapse. It transformed, its purpose and function rewritten from the inside out. What had been designed as a prison became a conduit, a network connecting every part of the ship in ways the Meridians had never imagined. Terra opened her eyes, now glowing with the same mathematical light that permeated the ship around her. "Your mistake," she said to the watching Meridians, "was thinking of mathematics as a tool rather than a language. You use it to describe and manipulate reality, but you don't truly converse with it." Throughout the vast ship, the awakening continued. Beings that had been held in stasis for decades, some for centuries, gradually returned to consciousness, their minds connecting to the mathematical network that Terra had established. A crystalline entity from the Andromeda arm, its consciousness distributed across a lattice of silicon nodes, awakened to find itself able to extend its awareness beyond its containment field for the first time in 700 years. A collective of gaseous intelligences from the Cygnus cloud, captured during their juvenile phase, reached maturity within their containment sphere and discovered they could communicate with the other captives through the mathematical patterns flowing through the ship. A being of pure energy, one of the ancient luminari, stirred from forced dormancy to find its prison had become a sanctuary, its powers no longer suppressed but channeled and amplified. One by one, thousands of minds joined the growing network, not a hive mind. Each consciousness remained distinct and individual, but a community connected through the mathematical language that Terra had introduced to the ship's systems. On the command deck, the Meridians watched in growing alarm as their perfectly ordered collection transformed into something entirely new. We have to evacuate, Jelks decided finally. Prepare the escape vessels. Priority protocol. Commander, Magor objected. We cannot abandon the specimens. Many are irreplaceable, the last of their kind. They are no longer specimens, Jelks replied coldly. They are a threat. The collective will understand our decision. As the Meridian command staff prepared to abandon their vessel, Tara Chen was experiencing something beyond human comprehension. Through the mathematical network she had created, she was in communication with thousands of different minds, some so alien that language would have been impossible, but mathematics provided a common ground. They shared their stories with her, tales of worlds destroyed, civilizations collapsed, species on the brink of extinction. The Meridians had presented themselves as preservers, collecting the genetic heritage of dying species, but the truth was far more complex. Many of the specimens had been taken from thriving worlds, their disappearance barely noticed amid the vastness of their societies. Others were indeed the last of their kind, their worlds destroyed by natural disasters or warfare, or in some cases, by the Meridians themselves after the desired samples had been acquired. All had been reduced to data points in the Great Meridian Collection, their individuality subsumed into categories and classifications. Until now. We need to stop them from escaping, came a thought from a silicon-based intelligence that had once been a renowned explorer in its home system. They will return with reinforcements. And warn the collective about you. Added another consciousness, this one belonging to a being of living metal from the galactic rim. Your abilities present a threat to their entire operation. Tara considered this as she sensed the Meridians preparing their escape vessels. She had no desire for conflict, but she understood the risk. More importantly, she felt responsible for the thousands of beings now awakening throughout the ship. She couldn't abandon them to face the Meridian Collective's retribution. We won't stop them, she decided. We'll join them. Through her mathematical connection to the ship's systems, Tara located the escape protocols and modified them. When Commander Jelks and his officers activated the escape sequence, they found their carefully planned departure transformed. Instead of small, swift vessels designed to outrun pursuit, the escape pods reconfigured into a single, massive transport capable of carrying not just the Meridian crew, but all the former specimens as well. More importantly, the navigation systems no longer pointed toward Meridian space, but to a distant, unclaimed region near the galactic rim. What is happening? Demanded Jelks as the escape vessel's interior expanded around him, walls shifting to accommodate thousands of passengers rather than dozens. Tara's voice came through the ship's communication systems, accompanied by visualizations of the mathematical transformations she was implementing. A change in destination, Commander, and in purpose. Through the viewing panels, Jelks and his officers watched in horror as their vessel, the pride of the Meridian fleet, began to transform. Its rigid, angular structure softened and flowed, becoming more organic in appearance. The containment sectors opened up, connecting to one another and to the main ship systems in ways the designers had never intended. "What are you doing to my ship?" Jelks demanded. "Making it ours," Tara replied simply. "You collected us without consent, studied us without compassion, and planned to exploit us without compensation. Now we're redefining the terms of our relationship." All throughout the vessel, the former specimens were emerging from their containment areas, some moving physically, others extending their consciousness through the mathematical network that now permeated the ship. They weren't escaping. They were claiming the vessel as their own. The crystalline entity established itself within the ship's computational matrix, its distributed consciousness enhancing processing speed 1,000-fold. The gaseous collective flowed through the environmental systems, optimizing atmospheric conditions throughout the vessel. The luminary energy being interfaced with the power core, refining its efficiency and extending its output. And at the center of it all stood Tara Chen, the unremarkable human mathematician whose perception had changed everything. "You have a choice, Commander," she said to Jelks. "You can join us in creating something new, or you can return to the collective and report your failure. Either way, we're keeping the ship." Jelks's posture stiffened, all 6 eyes focusing with cold intensity. "The collective will not allow this insurrection. We have fleets that can reduce this vessel to atomic particles." "Perhaps," Terra acknowledged. "But first they'd have to find us. And then they'd have to understand what we've become." A smile crossed her face. "Besides, I've reviewed your mission parameters. You were operating far outside your assigned sector, pursuing specimens without proper authorization. I suspect the collective might be more interested in your violation of protocol than in our liberation." For the first time in his long career, Commander Jelks found himself without a clear course of action. The human had not only usurped control of his vessel but had accessed his secure mission files, data that could indeed implicate him in serious violations of collective directives. "What do you propose?" he asked finally. "A new equation," Terra replied. "One where we learn from each other rather than exploit, where diversity is valued rather than catalogued, where your technology and our perspectives create something greater than either could achieve alone." As she spoke, the mathematical patterns flowing through the ship shifted, forming new configurations that represented the possibility she described. It wasn't just symbolic. The mathematics directly influenced the reality around them, creating physical changes in the ship's structure that reflected the new paradigm. Walls became transparent where once they had been solid, allowing different species to observe and interact with one another. Control systems reconfigured to accommodate a wide variety of physiologies. Communication nodes established translation matrices that converted between vastly different modes of expression. The vessel was becoming a living community. Chief Scientist Magor stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overcoming his loyalty to collective protocol. "This transformation, it violates everything we understand about stable system design. It should collapse into chaos." "Only if you assume chaos and order are opposites," Terra replied. "What if they're complementary aspects of a more complex equation? Your mathematics describes reality well enough to manipulate it, but there are deeper patterns you haven't explored." Around them, the transformation continued. The former Meridian extraction vessel, once a symbol of clinical precision and heartless efficiency, was evolving into something organic and vibrant. A city in space where thousands of different intelligences could coexist and collaborate. Over the next several days, a new society began to emerge aboard the transformed vessel. The Meridian crew, after initial resistance, found themselves drawn into the exciting possibilities of genuine exchange with species they had previously studied only as specimens. Scientific curiosity, the core value that had founded the Meridian Collective millennia ago before it was corrupted by imperial ambition, reawakened in many of them. Magor became the most enthusiastic convert, establishing research projects based on collaboration rather than exploitation. "We've learned more in 7 days of cooperation than in 17 years of dissection," he told Jelks, his appendages moving with excitement as he described a breakthrough in quantum communication developed with the crystalline entity. Commander Jelks remained skeptical longer than most, his centuries of indoctrination in collective superiority difficult to overcome. But even he could not deny the evidence before him. The vessel, now renamed Synthesis by popular consensus among its inhabitants, was achieving technological innovations that the Meridian Collective had never approached. More importantly, it was doing so ethically, with all participants fully informed and engaged. The mathematical network that Terra had established allowed for unprecedented collaboration across species barriers that had previously seemed insurmountable. 23 days after what was now being called the Awakening, Terra called a general assembly in the central chamber, once the specimen processing center, now transformed into a vast meeting space that accommodated beings of widely varying sizes, atmospherical requirements, and perceptual modes. "We've created something remarkable here," she addressed the gathered community, her words translated and transmitted through the mathematical network in forms that each species could comprehend. "But we face a decision about our future." The options were clear. They could remain hidden, establishing their own society far from the established powers of the galaxy, or they could reveal themselves and the new paradigm they represented. A challenge to the exploitative practices of the Meridian Collective and similar empires, a demonstration that true cooperation across species barriers was not only possible but tremendously powerful. The Collective will see us as a threat, Jelks warned, speaking now not as a commander but as one voice among many. They will not understand what we have become. Then we must help them understand, replied the crystalline entity through its connection to the network. As you have come to understand. The decision was not made lightly, nor quickly. Different species had different perspectives on risk and reward, on the value of security versus the importance of spreading their message. The mathematical network that connected them allowed for complex modeling of various scenarios, projecting possible futures based on different courses of action. In the end, they chose a middle path. They would not hide, but neither would they directly confront the established powers. Instead, they would travel the galaxy, making contact with individual worlds and species, demonstrating through example the power of their new paradigm. And gradually, world by world, species by species, they would change the equation of galactic society. 1 year after her abduction from Earth, Dr. Tara Chen stood on the observation deck of Synthesis, watching as they approached a new solar system, one charted but unvisited by the major galactic powers, home to a pre-spaceflight civilization on the brink of making their first tentative steps beyond their atmosphere. "Are we ready for this?" asked Mager, now one of her closest colleagues and friends. Tara smiled, watching as mathematical patterns flowed through the ship around them, the visible manifestation of thousands of minds working together in harmony, each distinct but connected. "I don't think anyone is ever ready to have their understanding of reality completely transformed," she replied. "I certainly wasn't, but that's the beauty of a new equation. It reveals possibilities you never imagined existed." Beyond the viewing port, the star system approached, another point in the expanding network they were creating across the galaxy. Not a conquest, not a collection, but a conversation, an exchange of ideas that would leave both sides forever changed. And in the mathematical patterns that flowed around Tara Chen, the unremarkable human mathematician who had changed everything, new equations were already forming, possibilities beyond imagination, a future written not in the language of dominance and submission, but in the shared grammar of mutual discovery. The story of the equation maker was just beginning.